by in one case by the security forces, and in second case by a parent. Uh, on the front page of the Indian Express in 2018, a report appeared in which the anti-terror squad reported that they received a complaint from a gentleman who was living in Dubai. This gentleman contacted ATS Mumbai, and it was a panic call. He said that he had seen posts by his young nephew, his sister's son. Those posts were extremely violent in nature, which revealed to this gentleman that his nephew, his sister's son, had gotten steadily radicalized. He realized the gravity of the situation, and he managed to connect with the anti-terror squad in Mumbai, since the boy lived and continues to live in Mumbai. Through the anti-terror squad, a team was sent very gently to this young man's residence. They quietly interacted with him in a very reassuring manner so as not to disrupt the family life in any way, and also so that even the neighbors would not be aware. They went in civil clothes. The interaction continued for weeks and months, but all this time it was highly reassuring. It was done in a very gentle manner so that the neighbors would not get alarmed, the family would not get alarmed, but steadily the youth was led out of radicalization. The second case is, this is from Mumbai. The second case I'm telling you is from Kashmir. This incident is part of one of the biggest bestsellers of 2019. The book is called Kashmir, The Conspiracy of Silence. In this book, the writer, Mr. Bashir Asad, writes of his own son, his elder son. He writes that his son was studying in NIT Srinagar, doing engineering, when he observed that on Facebook, his son had posted extremely violent videos. Now, as a father, he was shaken because he knew that sharing political ideology is one thing. But when his son started sharing such extremely violent videos on Facebook, he got alarmed, and he observed his son more closely thereafter, because the son had not been speaking of these thoughts in his head. The posts continued to be violent. The father tried to withdraw his son from violent ideology, and with great effort, he managed to draw him back. But in the middle of all this, the son lost his focus. A very bright young man about whom the entire family predicted that he would go into the administrative services, or he would be a highly qualified engineer, because he lost his focus to the forces of radicalization. Very valuable 3 to 4 years of his life were lost, and that led to the young man compromising on his career. There are countless such cases where youngsters fall prey to such forces. Now, the question is that why are the youngsters becoming vulnerable? Can we always say it is lack of employment? It is lack of alternate mainstream activities? Yes, these do play a role. The involvement of a youngster in sports, in mainstream social activities, in activities of higher education, in pursuing his education and his career, do play a role in keeping his thoughts channelized in the right direction. At the same time, these are not the factors which one may consider that they are foolproof to protect a youngster from radicalization. Let us understand that in Kashmir, the identity of a Kashmiri youth is exploited by forces inimical, opposed to the security of the country. So his identity as a Kashmiri is exploited, because if such a youngster is led into radicalization, then he is victimized. Then the movement or any action by such youngster is packaged as the struggle of a Kashmiri youth against the state. But here the youngster becomes the victim. He is not aware that he's being trapped. In addition to radicalization, how does this move into the destroying of the social fabric of a region? Kashmir is today one of the most vulnerable spots in the country where drug abuse is concerned. Drug abuse is alarmingly high. Even drug abuse is being used as a political tool by forces opposed to the integrity and sovereignty of India. Because once a youngster is radicalized, it is easier to make him cut off social contact with the positive and affirmative forces. Once he is led into addiction, it becomes so much easier for terror forces to then lead him to actions which may be against his will, but now his will has been compromised. All of us who are participating in this very meaningful dialogue today, we are stakeholders in this very important process of drawing back the youths from the process of radicalization. You will be surprised to know how much football, cricket have become popular in Kashmir in the last few years. These matches which you take for granted, you go out in your town, in your city, you go to a playground and you enjoy these matches. The youngsters in Kashmir did not have this liberty because the forces of terror were radicalizing them, leading them into stone pelting, leading them into violence. If she will speak Hindi, not all will understand her talk. For example, oh, uh, so so these youngsters, they wanted to go out and play, but the play areas were controlled by terror forces, where the radicalized youth were then led into manufactured anger so that the situation would quickly deteriorate and they would get into stone pelting and further radicalization. So this becomes a highly vicious process. In the last few years, downtown Srinagar, Sopore, Pulwama, Baramulla, so many areas of Kashmir have seen a resurgence in sports. These youths are so happy to find spaces where they can channelize their energies in an affirmative direction. So sports becomes a very important tool to withdraw youths from spaces where their energies may be negatively channelized. Another important direction is skill giving. More and more efforts have been made in the last few years to involve youths in efforts where their energies are either channeled as entrepreneurs, or they are involved in the tourism industry, or they are involved in the horticulture industry, so that the forces of radicalization do not prey upon them. Now, what are these forces of radicalization? It is extremely sad. Youths who have been victims of radicalization themselves, they say that in many cases, even their parents were not aware that inadvertently they were radicalizing their children. And many parents realized this when perhaps it was too late. And many parents realize this in time. So, yes, radicalization can also begin from the home environment. Radicalization can happen and does happen, not just can happen. Radicalization happens in educational institutions. Because if the teacher holds a radicalized thought, he or she will impart it to the children. There have been more such cases than can even be listed in one go, where children are being radicalized within the school. Realizing the danger, other affirmative forces in the society have tried to withdraw children from these negative forces. Once a child goes beyond school or goes beyond college, he wants employment which can affirmatively engage him or her in action. That is where employment opportunities become very important to keep the energy of a youth channelized in the right direction. Once I was flying from Srinagar to New Delhi, and a young man sitting next to me on the flight was from North Kashmir, and he was telling me of his experiences. We got talking, and he was telling me of his experience. And he said that, ma'am, you will be surprised to know that when I was a teenager, I used to consider myself as a very bright student, but I was completely isolated from the geopolitical realities of the world. He said the situation was that I had constructed a world in my head where only that world mattered, and I was absolutely divorced, cut off from the geopolitical contemporary realities. Then his parents, realizing that the child was intellectually isolated and he was intellectually not in a correct space, decided to send him to Delhi. And when he came to Delhi, he realized how limited his worldview was. And he said to me, ma'am, I was in such a vulnerable space that during that time, if somebody had managed to push me in the wrong direction, I would have got swept down that path. I would have lost my career. I would have lost my connect to my family. But because he was mainstreamed, he realized that his thoughts were teetering in the wrong direction, and he was able to pull himself back. Those who talk of radicalization, the most effectively are those who have been victims of this process. There is a young man in Baramulla, he's 40 years old now. For the last 6 years, he has been engaged in teaching poor children and orphans. He is educated himself, he's educated only till class 10. And this is a young man about whom his teachers would say, Ki, you can take from us in writing that this boy is going to be a brilliant doctor. It was the 80s. The 90s, when this man, even he was a teenager at that time, but his thoughts were getting so radicalized in the school environment, in the open spaces, in the township, that he became a stone pelter. He became a very aggressive stone pelter. He even became an overground worker for a terror group. And he went to jail. Thrice he went to jail. During the time he was in jail, his going into jail, coming back from jail, his father, because he was the eldest of the family, the darling of his father died of a heart attack. His father could not bear the pain of seeing his eldest son, his life destroyed in this way. The teenager whom his friends would call Einstein because he was so bright and he wanted to be a doctor. His life was destroyed coming in and out of jail. The father passed away. And this young man told me, he said, Didi, after so many years, I realized that my poor father, he did not know that inadvertently his talk was leading me to radicalization. What I was reading in the local newspapers was radicalizing me. What I was hearing in the open spaces of our township, standing among people, was radicalizing me. How did he get saved? Because he was always very fond of reading. And when he was in the jail at Udhampur, he was taken to Udhampur in jail. And when he was in jail, when he interacted with the lady who was in charge of the jail superintendent, she realized that this boy is always reading. Then she started interacting with him. And when the realities of life opened up to him, he realized that he had been played like a pawn. On a chessboard, you have pawns. So he had just been played. He had just been used as a tool by some people who wanted to package the so-called conflict in Kashmir as an indigenous conflict. And he had been used in that way. He said, not just him, so many youngsters have told me that their own friends, they lost their friends from school, they lost their friends from college, they were killed, they died because they were radicalized and they could not be pulled back from that path. So many forces have to come together to save our youths from radicalization, to give them back their life, so that they can live with their family as happy individuals. They can pursue their careers. They can pursue meaningful lives. You will be happy to know that every year now, so many batches of children are sent out from Kashmir for interaction with people in the rest of the country. And when they come to the other parts of India, these children realize that they had been fed wrong notions about their own country. They had been fed wrong notions about people in the rest of the country. That in the rest of the country also people are happy, they are welcoming, they are inclusive. And when these youngsters go back, they become ambassadors in their own way. And they tell their friends that the notions that we picked up were wrong. Our country is inclusive, it is progressive. So, why is so much money being spent on taking delegations of school children, of college children, year after year, month after month, taking them to other parts of India? Why is so much money and effort going into skilling the youngsters? Why is so much money and effort going into sports activities in the valley? You shall be very happy to know that all over Kashmir, playgrounds have come up. So youths are taking up so many sports in the smallest of areas. Cricket matches, football matches, even kabaddi matches are being organized so that youths become more and more involved in mainstream activities. Can you imagine any place where a football match is halted in the middle? The match is halted because the audience is so much that more and more people are coming into the stadium, and they want the match to be halted because they don't want to miss it. This is the power of de-radicalization efforts. When the collective effort goes into putting youths in affirmative channels of finding their future, of channelizing their energy. Yes, the threat is still there. Yes, we face this threat to national security. We face this threat to peace and harmony in Kashmir and in other parts of the country where youths may be deliberately led to thoughts and actions which are violent in nature. Let us understand that we are a democratic nation. We give space to our youths to have ideologies, political ideologies of the kind that they want to. A democracy can function only with independent and positive thinking. But this thinking cannot go into negative shades. I was once hosting the Pahalgam Media Summit. We were in Pahalgam, and a youngster in the audience got up and he started abusing the Indian nation. So we were surprised and we asked that youngster that, okay, you have a chance to speak as a member of the audience, but why should you use this opportunity to start abusing the Indian nation? He said, the democracy, the Indian democracy gives me the freedom to stand here and abuse the nation. Yes, the Indian democracy gives him the freedom, but every person in that audience knew that the youth has radicalized thought. It becomes very easy then to trap such youngsters and lead them to anti-national activities. It is very heartening, it is very encouraging that it is the people of Kashmir who are our biggest bulwark against these negative forces. They are the ones now telling their youngsters that you cannot go, you cannot take your thought in wrong directions, which will disrupt social peace and harmony. Radical thought more and more is getting weakened. The space is being taken by positive and affirmative forces. Why were there media headlines about downtown Srinagar becoming a happy place for football? Can you imagine that in Chennai or in Kolkata or in Mumbai or in Delhi, national headlines should be made that a certain area is celebrating football? No, we take it for granted. Why not? But in downtown Srinagar, it made national headlines. On all media houses, they carried stories, they carried reports that youngsters are playing football. They're playing, and in the summer, they would be playing football till 11 o'clock, till 12 o'clock at night with floodlights. Because when positive forces come in, downtown Srinagar was an area where stone pelting would happen. Before you knew it, the youngsters were pelting stones. And now you ask them, why were you pelting stones at that time? They just say, because we didn't know better. We thought this was the way to be. We thought we were doing the right thing. How easy it was then to influence such a youngster and take him further on the terror path. But today, those youngsters are thankful that their lives are engaged in a more meaningful direction. There is so much thrust on entrepreneurial activities in Kashmir. Because when youngsters get engaged in these activities, then their mind space gets occupied by positive and affirmative thinking. Then they are constructing their lives. Then they don't say, I don't care, I don't, as in the language of youngsters, then they're not in the mind space where they're saying, I don't give a damn about life. What does life carry for me? I'm going to throw stones, I'm going to get into street violence, I don't give a damn. But now they do, now they care. Now they're getting into activities where their energies are engaged. Yes, more needs to be done. We all are aware. Societies are never perfect. They are always an effort of a lot of people to bring positive energies together. A lot more needs to be done. Parents need to be more vigilant. When we started, when we started this session, I told you of a man who was living in Dubai and he saw his sister's son posting very violent content on Facebook. This is how more and more families need to become vigilant. The young boy, the boy's father, now, he was about 16, 17 years old at that time. His own father was not aware because the father was not on Facebook. He was not aware what his son was posting. The mother was not aware of what the son was posting. But fortunately, the boys, in our language, we say his mamu, his mother's brother, observed what the child was posting, and he withdrew him back. Of the case that I told you in Srinagar, the writer who wrote that book, K filed the Conspiracy of Silence. He observed what his son was posting and he withdrew him back. So the first protective shield against radicalization is the family environment. Then come more protective shields. We need these efforts in the space of education. We need see these efforts in the space of inskilling the youth in positive activities. We need greater interaction with mainstream energies. All these come together to make a youth realize that, yes, yes, the book has been correctly quoted here. This is the book that I'm talking about, where the man talks about his own son. So more and more of these forces are coming together. It is wrong to assume that the entire onus is upon the family, or the entire onus is upon the state, or the entire onus is upon the education system, or the entire onus is upon any other segment. Life is always a cohesive whole as in WHOLE. All these forces have to come together collectively. A man who is today the editor of a newspaper in Srinagar, the editor of Heaven Mail in Srinagar, he told me, he said, Didi, he's the eldest of his family. And it was very easy during the 80s, during the 90s for any youngster to feel radicalized in his thought. He said, Didi, he was part of he just came to Jammu. He had never come to Jammu. So by the time he was about 16, 17, he visited Jammu for the first time. And he came to Jammu only for 15 days. He had this short winter break and he came to Jammu. And when he came to Jammu, he realized that the people, now, the notions that had been fed to him by his environment, by his peer group, by the home environment, by the school, he realized when he came to Jammu that people here are equally happy. They are normal human beings like we are. They have normal aspirations like they have back in Kashmir. He says, Didi, I stayed back in Jammu for 6 months. I refused to go back. He enjoyed himself so much. And then Iqbal Bhai, this gentleman, he says he became the ambassador for rational thought in his own peer group when he went back. Then whenever he used to hear any radicalized thought, he would stop them. No, wrong. This is wrong. He became a major influencer for his own family. This is how collectively a society works towards de-radicalization. I want to underline how a radicalized youth becomes so much more vulnerable to be pushed into drug abuse, to be pushed into violent activities. Why is it would make you extremely sad to know that over the last few years, for over about 10 years, mothers and fathers, parents have been going to police officers and saying, "We beg of you, please put our child behind jail. We beg of you." Because he has become a drug addict. We cannot, there is so much violence in the house. So the police officers were taken aback by the parents coming and saying. And when these cases were investigated, it was found that these youths had been radicalized. They had been isolated from the home environment. They had been pushed into drug abuse. And now it was very easy to push these youths into also violent activities against the state. But yes, now we see more and more actions where a society is collectively recognizing the values of living in peace, in harmony, in not giving space to the forces of radicalization. This struggle continues. It is not over. No society is perfect. We all are putting in our energies to make our world a happier place to be in. And Vishwa Talks, which has, they have invited me for this session, and all of you have joined in. All of us are also making that effort to understand this phenomenon better. All of us have become contributors to this cause of how we pull back anybody we know in our spaces from negative forces, from negative energies, so that they may build meaningful life for themselves, meaningful lives and careers, care for themselves, care for their families. Um, there is so much to speak, but that one can go on and on. But now I think we should make space for interaction on this subject. Trishant, is that all right?
Yes, ma'am, that was a very informative talk. Thank you so much for the wonderful stories that you gave as examples.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the Q&A, I'd like to take just 30 seconds of your time for a quick poll. This will help us get to know you better and tailor future topics that we bring to you. A big thanks to everyone here today. Your presence and participation means a lot to us and has made this webinar a success. While you fill out the poll, I would also like to extend our heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speaker, Rajni Shalin Chopra, for sharing her valuable time and insights with us. I'd now like to hand over the Q&A session and the talk to the founder of Vishwa Foundation, Shravani Mulapati. Hi, ma'am.
Namaskar, ma'am.
Namaskar, ma'am.
Namaste. Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming up with such an enlightening talk. Just like people of Kashmir in the 18 and 19s were ignorant about this phenomenon, other parts of India, people are ignorant about this radicalization that's happening. We're ignorant, and for you to put a spray of light in this space has given us a better understanding of what is happening out there. Thank you to all the audience, and thank you so much, Trishant. Wonderful talk. I'd like to take not more than 5-10 minutes to talk about Vishwa. Vishwa is an organization which is an online platform for everyday change makers like man and social champions. It's a crowdfunding and a crowdsourcing platform. It is aimed to help anyone find the support they need in their efforts to fulfill their dreams for themselves, for others, and in the process, make this world a better place. This winter, we are donating warm clothes to the needy please do look at the chat in the chat box. There's a link out there. If anybody wants to give old blankets or sweaters or new ones, please feel free to do that. Vishwa is also working on Zero Waste Hyderabad by 2027. It's a Herculean task. For those of you who are interested in making this a reality in Hyderabad, please join our forces with us. If your apartment building, if your community is interested, if you would like to take it on to make them zero waste, we are there to support you completely. We give free training sessions. Please register with us. With this, I would like to jump into just one last thing, the material drive which we conducted in Deepavali, where more than 200 people had donated their old clothes, toys, have been distributed to at least 1,000 people. They're so happy. These kids have come forward and said that their whole year's requirements have been taken care of. Thank you so much to each of the donors. Yes. With this, Shmuel, would you like to ask your question? Yeah, please unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, very interesting presentation, and thank you very much. And I want to ask next question. How, according to your opinion, the experience and the example of Kashmir can support fighting against terrorism and resolution different conflicts in another places around the world?
Can you repeat? Can you repeat?
Yeah, of course. I asked how experience of Kashmir can support resolution different political, ethical, and religious conflicts in another places around the world and effective struggle against terrorism.
Yes. It's a very important point you have raised, sir. Very important.
What
the question the gentleman has asked is that how can the Kashmir experience help in addressing conflict situations elsewhere in other parts of the world? Sir, Kashmiri people now realize the price that they have paid for inadvertently, voluntarily or involuntarily, choosing the path of violence. Kashmir was, they will tell at any international platform, if you bring Kashmiri people, they will tell you how from a highly prosperous region, Kashmir gradually deteriorated to a very dependent region where lakhs of youths, their lives were destroyed, they were killed or their lives destroyed. So when such people speak from personal example, then in other parts of the world, it becomes a lesson in what not to do. Happy societies lead by example. Unhappy societies also lead by their example. And when these Kashmiri youths, they stand at any international forum and they talk about how systematically their thought was corrupted, then it becomes a lesson to other regions. It is for the people of the other region to take the lesson whether they want to. There has to be the will. But the people of Kashmir are today talking about how amazing it is when their lives have been normalized. The world, you would have heard the words conflict weary, WEARY, conflict weary. They are weary of conflict. They are tired of conflict. They want a normal life, and now they are getting a normal life. And that is why Kashmir is blossoming. So the onus equally is on the other region to draw lessons from Kashmir. The Kashmiris are willing to share their experiences on international platforms.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ma'am, I have a question. Why is it that social media still works at polarizing the society, at bringing in differences across the country? And why is it that the social media, where there's one set of people who are against a particular topic, get feeds for it, another set of people get feeds for they believe it? And there is nobody who's talking about what's right and what's wrong. And even if anybody comes out and says this is wrong, the entire community in that platform tries to beat them down. What do you think of that?
Researches that have been done globally on social feeds have proved that negative feeds appeal to people far more. And hence, there is this negative reinforcement. Social media is being used as a tool by these negative forces, yes, to polarize the society. It is for the user to analyze that where we are taking it. Australia has now tried an experiment where they're trying to limit the use of social media by the children. Now, the entire world is watching whether Australia is going to be successful in that. But as these researchers have proved that negative feeds appeal to people more, so with greater connectivity, we are making ourselves more vulnerable to social conflict. When the world did not have so much of digital exposure, we were relatively in more peaceful zones. And now trouble can erupt. It's a threat we all are living with. It's a daily struggle. It's a daily grapple.
Ramya. Okay. Thank you so much for putting a little light on that. Yes, Trishant.
Ma'am, I have two questions. One of them is, could you kindly tell us if there are any organizations that sort of play a crucial role in, say, education and de-radicalization? Education primarily, other than the government.
Yes, NGOs in Kashmir are making a significant effort to involve the youth in diverse spheres of activity. This starts from school level to skilling the youths to making them more employable. It's very important for these organizations to be monitored, because in Kashmir, organizations which have gone ahead and done a good role in these initiatives have later been found to be using these youths and channelizing their energies into
Right.
activities that compromise India's security. So monitoring is very important. But yes, there are organizations which have done a which have played a valuable role, starting from school level to the imparting of initiatives, skilling initiatives and other activities of involving the youth. So separately, I can, we can discuss some major organizations which have played a sterling role in this regard.
Okay, ma'am, you can sort of mention the organizations to me after the talk, and I'll also try to share it with the participants who have attended
Yes.
today. One more question from my side. The second question I had was, as a person who'd probably like to travel to Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, or tour there, if I want to go and stay there for a while and sort of volunteer in educative activities or sports or ecology environment, could you please suggest some organizations that help us in do that? And I'll share that with the participants as well post the talk.
Kashmir is such a welcoming place. You would not have seen hospitality the way you will experience it in Kashmir. You will not have seen warm people, coming forward to play with you, to laugh with you, to celebrate with you the way you will find it in Kashmir. Such beautiful people. And if you go to any place of stay, you'll be taken aback by the level of hospitality. The smile on their faces is not plastic. They genuinely want to interact with you. They genuinely want to give you great food. They genuinely want you to have a great time in the valley. Yes, even in those environments, there are negative experiences. All is not hunky-dory. I know of a certain bhajan group, this satsang group that went to Kashmir. And because they were doing satsang, they were pushed into a tiny room. A group of about 70 to 80 people were pushed into a tiny room. And well, they had difficulty then carrying on with their satsang. There are these experiences also. So let us be aware that Kashmir is a land of opposites. Every opposite is true. They are greatly hospitable. I was sitting on Boulevard Road. It's adjoining Dal Lake, one of the hottest tourist spots, where a man, the waiter of a hotel, came and started shouting at this gentleman who was sitting outside with his family, just because he was angry. And so it's a land of opposites. It's beautiful, and then there are some trouble spots, but it's absolutely always so engaging. Kashmir is so engaging. One can never ever get bored there. And the people are largely, I will say, the people are very beautiful, very, very welcoming of any initiative. You want to go and educate them, they will welcome you with open arms.
Next question. Thank you, Trishant. From Lakshmi Narayan Nagisetti, empowerment is the top priority area in this area. It has become more of a political rather than development. What is your opinion on that, ma'am?
In Kashmir, everything is political. Let us be aware of this reality. Your clothing is political. Every aspect is political. Yes, empowerment is also political, because in a region where everything is political, Kashmiri children are far more politically aware than children in other parts of India. And why is it so? I myself could not figure it out till I read a Polish writer writing on what is the meaning of political awareness. Children who grow up, who are not threatened by their caste, not threatened by their class, as in they are affluent, they come from high caste families, they have not faced any kind of discrimination at any level, they are always apolitical in their thought. And I read this when I read a very descriptively write-up by a Polish writer. She said these people tend to be apolitical because they have never faced any threat to any aspect of their life. But in Kashmir, steadily, when the thought was, it was actually pumped into the society. It took a lot of effort. Do you know that in the 70s, in the 80s, in the early 80s, Kashmiri parents would take their children, and it used to be a celebration that we are going to Delhi to watch the Republic Day parade. How many of us did that from the rest of the country? These children recall that their parents would say, now Kashmir was extremely cold in winter. So everybody would opt to go to Delhi or Jammu or wherever they could go. And in affluent families, it would be a huge celebration that we're going to Delhi and we're going to see the Republic Day parade. They were so integrated. It took a lot of effort to erode this level of integration within Kashmir society, to strengthen the negative forces, to strengthen the separatist forces. The Kashmiris resisted. The resistance went on, but when the onslaught is too high, then one side gives way. So yes, now the integrating forces are stronger, and the biggest strengthening factor to the integrating force is the Kashmir society. As I said, they are conflict wary. They want to be part of the mainstream. They want their children to be part of the mainstream. They say this conflict has yielded us nothing. It ripped apart families, it destroyed families. Now they want to come back to normalization. They are celebrating peace and harmony now. What we take for granted, they celebrate. And every one of us must go to Kashmir to see how beautiful the people are, how beautiful the place is. Yes, please.
Yes, Harshit, please ask your question.
Yeah, namaste, ma'am. Ma'am, various initiative taken by governments in the radicalization issue to solve the radicalization issue in the Kashmir. But ma'am, government has taken initiative as zero tolerance policy and various measures, prolonged strategy. But ma'am, फिर भी वहाँ आजकल इशू होते रहते हैं. मैम, मेन रीजन क्या है? आज सोशल मीडिया के अदर उसका मेन रीजन क्या है? वहाँ की रेडिकलाइजेशन फिर भी कम ही नहीं हो रही है. मैम, क्या
Let
रिलीजियस
us understand one thing. Starting from the 70s, these efforts to destabilize India started from the 70s, from forces opposed to India, those who wanted to destabilize India. 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 40 years. How can the damage done in 40 years be undone in 4 years? It cannot be. Ma'am just now asked a question that why do we have polarizing forces? Why are those polarizing forces allowed to become dominant? Because man, by his nature, wants to acquire power without accountability. What are democracies? Where power is vested in a group of people with accountability. Our governments are accountable. But in Kashmir, forces became powerful without accountability, which man desires in all regions, that I should have all power without accountability. Now, for 40 years, the damage was done. It will take us some amount of time to undo the damage, to steadily undo the damage. By being here, by joining this session, you all are putting in your energies. Trishant just now asked a question that I want to be part of an initiative where I engage with the Kashmiri youth. Ma'am would, with all the good work that you're doing, perhaps ma'am would already be thinking that how can I be part of initiatives where Kashmiri children are mainstreamed and brought into positive and affirmative activities. This is the process that all of us have collectively taken this endeavor to engage, mainstream, make them realize that they're part of a beautiful, progressive, inclusive India. So my dear, the damage undoing effort will also take some amount of time. And the lady who asked the question just before this, that why are empowerment efforts political? In a region where everything is political, even your clothing is political, every effort per se, by default, becomes political.
Okay, thank you.
I'll close the call now and the webinar now, and after this, the question answers can continue. With this, I would like to talk about the upcoming talks. The next speaker is Dr. Sirimao Nair, MSc PhD. The topic is food fortification and public health and an approach to address malnutrition, ecology and environment. This talk is on 28 December, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Please share with your friends and families because most of these talks do not reach through Facebook and WhatsApp or through mails to people who are interested. So if you know people in your lives who are interested in such topics, please do share the links with them. The second talk is on 11th January 2025. This is by Ms. Karuna Sharma, Sustainability Consultant, Steps Needed to Fight Climate Change climate actions for individuals, government, and organizations. Topic is the much needed right now in our environment, in our society. Please don't take it light. The impact of the climate change is immense. Please ensure everybody that you know it in your life knows about this talk. Do
And
share
the
it.
participants will have a link for this within the coming Monday and with all the details about the talk.
Yeah. And I would like to thank Vishwa Talks and Trishant for bringing such pertinent and interesting, not only interesting, difficult topics to our viewers. And for more information, reach out to the speaker. Contact details and links are available in the chat box, which will be open for the next 10 minutes. Lastly, please take a moment to subscribe to Vishwa Talks to get alerts on every new, exciting, exclusive events and access to the Vishwa community. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn for further updates. Do subscribe for Vishwa Talks. Ensure your family and friends subscribe for it. Yes, and next, thank you so much, ma'am. Once more, big. I am sure if you are working on this topic, it's not easy. It must have been a difficult decision for you to have actually put your life aside to work on this topic in this place.
Krishna, 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 Krishna.
And thank you to each of the speakers for coming forward at a time when the country is getting polarized in different directions, to come and to understand what is the right thing, what is happening, who's right, who's wrong, what should our reaction be. I'm sure a talk like this would have neutralized a little bit of radicalization at least.
God bless. God bless.
Thank you to each of the participants. Thank you to everyone to make this happen. Thank you so much. With this, we will continue with our talk. Ashita, would you like to unmute and...
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My question is about that what is Vishwa? What works they do? It is an NGO or organization. Tell me something most about the Vishwa.
So, Indian culture is at a time where it is disappearing fast. People are looking towards the West. We would like to protect the Indian heritage, Indian culture, keep people unified. Like this talk is helping us understand that yes, there's 40 years of destabilization efforts that have taken place. Schools have been radicalized. That we need to give space and time for people to recover. Just like in our family, if one of the child is sick, we take care until they recover, right? So if one of the states in our country is sick, we need time to give that time to recover. Similarly, Vishwa is talking on various topics pertaining to India to protect our heritage. Let it be Ayurveda. What our grandmothers knew, our parents don't know. What our parents know, we don't know. A little cold can go with a little tulsi. How many of us actually have tulsi at home? Huge knowledge, thousands of centuries, thousands of years and centuries of knowledge is fast disappearing. Mudras, we bought in mudras. So in various topics, we're having people to come and talk. And this is the only talk that I know in the entire country which allows all the speakers to ask question answers. And we ensure that we don't put any biases. We let everybody ask their question so that they can make the choices and decisions that they want to make. We do work in vocational training. We look forward to doing much more. We've right now taken on zero waste Hyderabad because environment is much needed. 80% of the waste in Hyderabad is going into landfills, which is a very dangerous thing. So we've taken on this program for the next 3 years. Like this, we take old clothes and distribute it among the poor. So we're trying to build a society, a cohesive society, a society which supports each other, a society which is proud about being an Indian. And youngsters like you, we want you to know what India has. I hope I've given you a glimpse. Of course, you can go to Vishwa Talks, Vishwa Online, YouTube. You can see all the talks. We have around 160 talks, even listening to one talk a day. As ma'am said, when the Kashmiri youth came out of the state into other parts of the country, they were surprised. So as you're at your age, if you listen to even 50% of the talks, your horizon expands. Yeah. Is that okay? You need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will go through
Yeah.
the website and talk also.
Every day one talk.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
make all your friends listen to it. Okay. Next, what do you think of Article 370, ma'am? And what is the impact? And not only the impact, do Kashmiris fear it? What is the political stand on it?
The people of Kashmir have moved beyond Article 370. They realize, more and more Kashmiris are realizing that it became a force of great damage in their lives. It was used as a political instrument to isolate Kashmir, to damage Kashmir by forces opposed to India. And now they are not really concerned about Article 370, but the politicians, for them, it is a very useful tool to keep beating upon it, to keep taking people on the rosy path that supposedly Article 370 will be reinstated. They keep selling those dreams that we are demanding. People have started asking that what did Article 370 give to us? Youths were killed in lakhs, children's lives were destroyed, families were ripped apart, there were no jobs. All the dependence was on government jobs. Kashmir's own industry, own manufacturing, everything took a beating. From a very prosperous region, it became a very, very, its GDP really suffered. So people have moved beyond it, but the politicians, these are political forces. It's all a game of power. So yes, there's a constituency in Kashmir. Let's not forget that there is a constituency in Kashmir which has separatist tendencies, and it is not sufficiently weak till now. It is there, and it is not as weak as we would think it is. So that constituency, they look, they want to strengthen separatist tendencies. They want 370 to be back so that it can be used in the same way that the way it was used before, to politically destabilize, and efforts to politically destabilize and weaken India. Fortunately, we are a big nation, we are a strong nation, so we did not allow these forces to damage us. But within Kashmir, they did a lot of damage. This needs to be understood.
And there's a question from, thank you so much for giving a very balanced view on this. There's a question from Santushti. When people from all over India can live in parts of countries like Bombay, Delhi, Hyderabad, why not in J&K? Is it the barrier for working and achieving empowerment of all? Your suggestion, please.
Things are not black and white ever. A society, there's a lot of gray in society. Why was terrorism brought into Kashmir? To break Kashmir from India? And why are efforts still ongoing by anti-India forces so that Kashmir is isolated? It has complete homogeneity and it is isolated. So yes, it is. Now you can buy land. There are, after the removal of Article 370, there are processes by which it is possible to buy land in Kashmir or to lease land. But the point is, what is holding industries back, what is holding manufacturing back, is that it is still not safe. The police, the security forces, the army, the other paramilitary forces, they are trying to make Kashmir a safe space. It is an endeavor of the government, but we have to be cognizant of the realities that what is bracketed as outsiders in Kashmir are deliberately attacked to spread fear. And as I said, the damage done in 40 years cannot be undone in 4 years. It will have its own gestation period. The way the Kashmiri people resisted, thousands of them died just because they questioned that what is this going on? What road are you taking us on? But they were systematically killed. Those voices were systematically silenced. So when you start to undo the damage, it will have its own gestation period. Yes, it is not, it may be theoretically possible for you to buy land, but it is not entirely safe. And that is impeding the efforts to normalize the situation. I missed that question. What was that on the screen?
The next from Jeevan Singh or from Fabi Santushti? Which one are you? I'll come.
Something about negligence of something.
I'm asking every single question. My next question will be that.
Okay.
So there is a question from Fabiha Bilal. Ma'am, my question is that do you think the negligence of government towards the youth lead to radicalization during the 90s? And the fact that government tried to suppress the emotions of youngsters, did it lead to radicalization?
You know, it is so convenient to label the government as being negligent. It is so convenient. But it is sad to say, and this comes from victims of radicalization. Standing on the outside, it is very easy to say that, you know, blame the government, blame the government. But when you talk to people who went through the process of radicalization, whose lives were destroyed, whose careers were destroyed, so many of them were killed. When you talk to them, they tell you that the fault lay in our social environment. I will tell you an incident. This young man who, again, he became a very aggressive stone pelter. He was standing in the town square in Pulwama. And he says that I was standing there with my friends when a very eminent gentleman of the area came. His son was standing with these 4 or 5 young men. This eminent gentleman of the area came, and this gentleman would shout from the mic about, you know, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to save Kashmir, you must lay down your lives for Kashmir. You know, the way radicalization, the environment is spun around, right? This gentleman would shout from the mics. Now, this man's son was standing with these 4 or 5 youngsters. This man said to me, he says, Didi, I was standing right there. This gentleman comes. The first thing he does is he catches hold of his son. And Kashmir is a very simple society. They weren't given into your political correctness. They were a very simple society. Right there in the town square, he gave his son 2 hard slaps. First 2 hard, tight slaps. Then he pulled him by his ear and he said, Ki tumhe akal nahi. Okay, I'll so that all of you can understand. He says, don't you have any mind of your own? Don't you have any intelligence that you're standing here while you have to prepare for your medical entrance exam? This man says to me, he says, Didi, I was stunned that just about 1 hour ago, this gentleman was shouting from the mic that you have to lay down your life for the protection and freedom of Kashmir. And now he's pulling away his own son who has to prepare for an medical entrance exam. And what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to go and lay down our lives for the freedom of Kashmir. So in Kashmir, people, when they talk to you, they say that in Kashmir, everybody wants the neighbor's son to fight for freedom. The neighbor's son should fight for freedom. My son should become a doctor or an engineer. The neighbor's daughter, she should get married to a freedom fighter, but my daughter should get married to a man in a government job. This may be new to you. This is everyday familiar talk among the people of Kashmir, that the neighbor's son should go and become a stone pelter. So these are the dynamics which have been pushing and pulling Kashmiri youths in diverse directions. Why is it? Just pause and ask this question, why is it that only youngsters in their, lads in their teens or youngsters in their 21, 22, 23, 24? Why is it that only they are sucked into the radicalization ecosystem? Why is it that the elder Kashmiris are not becoming part of it? Because by the time you're 27, 28, 30, 31, 32 and above, you become aware of how the whole terror ecosystem is playing around you. It is only when you're 16, 17, 18, of the fire of youth, you're still vulnerable, your ideas are not completely formed, that you can be pulled into these negative areas, into these negative spheres.
Yeah. Usha, would you like to ask a question? Unmute yourself and ask.
So yes, she asked that, is the government responsible? It is very easy to lay the blame on the government. But how much was being done at the social level, at the family level? These victims of radicalization tell you that I wish our parents, our teachers, who were drawn from the same society, had not taught us. They were teaching the students to be so-called freedom fighters, so-called. They were teaching the students to be freedom fighters, and they were telling their own children to prepare for medical entrance, engineering entrance. So before you blame the government, it is important to look within, introspect.
Yeah. Usha, go, carry on, please. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Namaste, ma'am. Yeah, sorry, I have joined late. Whether I don't know you have answered for this question or not. What is the education system over there in Jammu and Kashmir? And like, you know about the curriculum education system which we have in our past days. So that is totally based on ethical value-based education system which we have followed throughout our lifestyle. But is it possible to implement that in J&K?
The education system, sad to say, has played a major role in Kashmir in radicalization. The radicalization forces became part of the system. When a whole society becomes radicalized, see, Kashmir would not have reached where it reached if almost the entire society had not got radicalized, and the people who were not radicalized, who were just fence sitters, who were trying to draw back from this madness, were killed, were silenced. So the only vocal forces, the dominant forces, were the forces of radicalization, and steadily they started spreading their influence. Now, it was the same people who came into the government systems. It was the same people who came into the government jobs. It was these same people who became teachers. It became the same people who became the revenue officers, the health officers. And people who were not de-radicalized, who stood with India, were afraid to speak up. Even now, they're afraid to speak up. Because it is in Kashmir, it is far easier to be a radicalized person, but now the government has stepped in. When you say a zero tolerant policy, why zero tolerance? Why this zero? Because the space given for the democratic space, the Kashmiris are the first ones to tell me, ma'am, the democratic space is being misused. You do not use the democratic space to spread anti-India feelings. Now, if the democratic space is being used to that end, then the democratic space is being misused. I think it would be individuals like us who are responsible to provide ethical. Yes, every one of us, the Kashmiris as much, we the people of India are the biggest stakeholders in Kashmir. We the people of India. We the people of India, including the Kashmiris, the Bengalis, the Punjabis, the Tamilians, the Keralites, the Andhra, people from Andhra, from Haryana, from Punjab, every one of us is a stakeholder in Kashmir because it is a part of our country. We have to collectively go on the right path. The way ma'am has taken up social welfare activities in Hyderabad, a lot of people are taking up social welfare activities in Kashmir because that amounts to mainstreaming more and more.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Like, our Indian education system is totally different, which I want to talk and which I am working on already right now, the particular time. So that my question is like, I can hear with the people that they are telling from the childhood, the child is tend to be in this particular like I can see the religious different from those people like Muslim people or from the childhood, from the birth itself, they are training them to be in that particular terrorism way itself. That what I'm hearing with every people.
The sad part is that in the noise of all that is negative, the positive gets eclipsed. Yes, there are efforts to radicalize children from childhood. Yes, even now they are continuing. Yes, but when the Kashmiris are fighting these forces, and they are more and more, they are saying that the child to do not allow the child to be radicalized. They are standing up and saying, the poor man is saying that give my child the education where he's not radicalized. Then those positive efforts get eclipsed by the noise and by the negative sentiment caused by the negative efforts. Yes, the negative efforts are there. What you have heard is not wrong, it is there. But so many positive efforts get hidden behind that, the darkness of that negativity. So many positive initiatives, in colleges and in Anantnag, in colleges in Kupwara, in schools in Baramulla, in schools in Shopian. So much effort is going to provide affirmative, inclusive education to children. All that gets eclipsed by the noise of the dark efforts.
Uh, are they children education programs, people coming from Kashmir studying in Punjab or Kashmir or Delhi, and then children from here going there and studying these days?
It is more and more family based. The government of India has started initiatives where in education, engineering colleges in Punjab or in other colleges, seats were set aside for Kashmiri students. Now it is very sad that a huge scam entered into this, and there were Kashmiri people who were responsible for that scam. They would bring the government had provided X amount of money so that these children would be brought to engineering colleges in Punjab or other colleges, other professional colleges in Punjab, and the government would pay their fee. Now, the scam was that the person who was made the nodal officer of the scheme, he, instead of paying the college, pocketed the money. With a group of people, the scam, they pocketed the money. So the money did not go to the college concerned where the government had paid the tuition fee. And these children were then at a loose end because their tuition fee had not been paid. These colleges were private engineering colleges, and they said we will not keep these children. That became a huge, it became a huge problem. But there have been various initiatives on part of the government to bring out children, provide them education elsewhere. These children then become brand ambassadors for the inclusive and progressive India. There's this organization called Sarhad in Pune. They have done amazing work in educating Kashmiri children. Sarhad, run by this gentleman, very fine gentleman. He's won many awards. I cannot recall his name immediately. Very fine gentleman. He's provided education to hundreds of Kashmiri children in the Sarhad group of institutions in Pune.
Fantastic.
And those children, they became so mainstream. They realized what a happy country, we are part of such a happy country. And now these Kashmiris are saying on videos, these videos get huge traction in Kashmir. They get huge traction in Pakistan, where these Kashmiris are saying, whoever wants to take us out of India and wants to take us to Pakistan, why will we leave such a prosperous, happy region and such a prosperous, happy India and go to Pakistan where we don't get food to eat, where we don't get fuel, where we don't get rights? So these Kashmiris have become the strongest voices. See, no voice is stronger than the voice of a Kashmiri. And when the Kashmiri tells you that I'm happy here, what are you talking about? This is my nation. I'm part of a happy nation. Then his voice becomes the strongest. So what this woman just mentioned, yes, those negative forces are there, but they must not get eclipsed by the thousands of positive efforts being made by Kashmiris every day to give positive, affirmative education to their children.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. Another question. What about the Kashmiri Hindus, the 5 lakh Kashmiri Hindus who left Kashmir? Are they coming back or are they not coming back? If they come back, do they get back to their homes? What is the environment like?
Sarhad, yes, Sarhad. Sanjay Nahar. Trisham, that's right. Sanjay Nahar ji. Oh, he's such a fine gentleman. Thousands of Kashmiri youngsters have gone to Pune. They've studied with Sarhad. And Sanjay Nahar ji has won so many awards, and each award is totally merited for the service he's done to the nation. Each award is completely merited. A very fine gentleman. Yes, the Kashmiri Pandits. So the situation is not too good. The Kashmiri Pandits want to go back to their homeland, but they know the dangers involved. They are targeted. Even now, Kashmiri Pandits who have gone there, they live in enclaves, they live in protected enclaves. And at places, Kashmiri Pandits have deliberately, Kashmiri Pandit men, they have deliberately been killed brutally just to send out the terror message. This exactly is what living in a terror region is. So let us not presume that now Article 370 is gone, Kashmiri Pandits can go back. Efforts, a lot of Kashmiri Muslims, the way they talk of their Pandit teachers, the way they talk of their Pandit friends, the way they want them to be back. They say that they belong to this place as much as we do. Our society is incomplete without them. Yes, there are these positive sentiments. At the same time, there are terror forces. We have to be realistic that the terror forces exist. They do not want them to be back. They want Kashmir to be always labeled as a conflict region, as a terror region. It serves them to destabilize India. So these are the dynamics with which we have to deal. The government is making efforts to deal with them, but there is no quick fix solution. There is no band-aid solution to these immense challenges.
Are Kashmiri homes still in the names of Kashmiri Hindu homes still by the government protected for the Kashmiri Hindus, or are they getting occupied by others?
Over the years, there was distress selling, immense distress selling. People were forced to sell their houses. These are negative forces which just sweep over a society. And sometimes the good people, they feel helpless. They are watching it. But when the risk is death, then they feel helpless. So there was distress selling, homes were occupied. So many Kashmiri Pandits, they went mad by the grief of losing their house, their hearth, being displaced from their land. This is going to be a very, very difficult struggle. They want to come back. The Kashmiri Muslims, a good percentage of the Kashmiri Muslims want to welcome them back. But there are challenges. There are very real challenges which cannot be overlooked.
Why is the local government, the news coming out is that the local government is not very comfortable with Kashmiri Hindus coming back, and that they are taking out their electricity and harassing them? Is this news correct or wrong?
No. It will not happen at the government level. The
Not
government will not, no, not at all. This will not happen at the level of the government. But yes, in the society, there are malevolent forces. In the society, there are dark forces who do not want them to be back, that they will come and take our jobs, they will come and take our land. Why should we share our land? This will not happen at the level of government. They will disconnect the electorate. No, this pettiness, not at all. They want to be welcoming. They want to see them back, but the dark forces also are, as I told you, these radicalized mindsets, they are within the system now. When you employ a man, say you employ a man in the health department or in the revenue department, you're studying his degrees, you're studying his mark sheet. You're not studying what kind of mindset does he have. Is he anti-India? Is he pro-India? I'll give you an example which absolutely shook up the J&K government back in 2022, when elections to the District development councils were held. People who went to vote, Kashmiris who went to vote, they were cursed by the poll officials sitting inside the polling booths. The poll officials sitting inside the polling booths were cursing the people who had come to vote that you are fools, may you die, may this happen to you, may that happen to you, that you've come to take part in so-called, this was their language, in India's democratic process. And who were these poll officers? Government employees. And people reported, they complained that we were cursed by the poll officers, that why have you come to vote? Because when a Kashmiri comes out to vote, then it is shown as his faith in India's democratic system. So then the government investigated that, you realize that when you take in a government employee, you're not studying his mindset, right? You're only studying his degrees and his education. So when they become part of the system, they sabotage government efforts, even sabotaging of government efforts goes on. So it is not that as if the political players want to sabotage, but within the system, a lot of sabotaging is happening.
Thank you for this. And the Kashmiri Hindus want FIRs to be registered, but till today, the FIRs are not being registered. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, the Pandits are seeking justice, and it's a difficult battle. It's not so easy, it's easier said than done. A Truth and Reconciliation Commission or such efforts can be made. I do not know whether, not even a single FIR has been registered. This may be a misinformation by some media report. One will have to find out how many cases were registered, but people were forced to sell their houses. Distress selling was forced upon them. Houses were forcibly occupied. Villages were emptied out. Entire villages were emptied out of Kashmiri Pandits. So when that process went on for years, the healing will take time to happen. And now, while the healing is taking place, the damaging forces are equally at work. The damaging forces are now below the radar, because the government radar is much stronger now. The government, the government's monitoring of any negative force is much stronger now, so they're operating below the radar. But the fears remain, and the damages, they are doing the damage as much as possible for them.
And thank you so much. I feel that you're a divine person who's
Hare
actually
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
such
Hare
a
Hare Krishna.
difficult job over, and you have spoken so balancedly about the issue.
Before we close the session, I would like to say that our biggest strength in Kashmir are the Kashmiri people. They who stand with India, they who believe in India, they who have given up their lives to stand with India. Our patriotism is not tested daily. Their patriotism is tested daily. Their love for the nation is tested daily. They are the ones who are telling their children, this is the Tiranga. This is your nation. Stand with it. They are our biggest strength. And more of us should engage with Kashmir in one way or the other. I think Sanjay Naharji would be such a wonderful person to educate us on this subject. Imagine providing education to so many Kashmiris. So more and more of us should engage, so that the healing happens more and more. Thank you for giving me time and space.
Thank you so much. And thank you to each of the participants who have joined. Thank you to Trishant. And thank you to the entire Vishwa team, that, all of them are on leave and still they made this happen. Thank you so much to everyone.
I'll request Rajni ma'am to just wait for a minute. I will start the breakout room so that Shivani ma'am, you and me can join the breakout room.
Yeah. Would you like to add a few words, Trishant?
Oh, I'm very overwhelmed. There's tears stuck here right now. I'm just waiting for the session to end. But yeah, I would love to discuss more efforts that can be done in the future from, say, a very generalized public like myself, who have some time to travel once in a while, and maybe bring out activities of inclusivity amongst uh, people over there with us, and have them over in Gujarat, have them over in Telangana, have them over in different places to have jobs, education, and all sorts of different experiences that we already have in our daily lives. So I'd love to I've learned that we definitely need to be more inclusive in terms of how we are thinking about Kashmir and work towards that direction.
Shant, whenever you're interested, whenever you have the time, I'll connect you to the people who are the right forces, the trusted people to give you ways and means to integrate and more in Kashmir society.
Sure.
Ma'am, really good. This interaction was so good, and thank you for giving me the time. Thank you so much. You're doing very good work, ma'am. I'm very, very happy to see of the wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you.
In just a second.
Trishant, he is inviting you to join room 1. Shall I
Yeah.
join here now?
No. Just wait a minute. I will.
Yeah, we'll join room.
Yes, you can join room.